Well, hello everyone, and good afternoon, and welcome to our webinar with Valerie Trapunsky of ChatterBoss. We're super excited to have you here today, and you'll also be at the New Jersey headquarters of CEO Warrior next week for our war planning and our All Warrior event. So we are also excited to have you speak to our clients that day as well. So I would like to start off today, Valerie, by you introducing yourself, talking about who you are, how you started the company, what were your thoughts behind it, and really we're going to go kind of straight into what a fractional executive assistant service can do for you.
Yeah, so thank you for that introduction. Yeah, let me start by telling you a little bit about myself and why I am here talking to you about fractional assistance and delegation. So, my background is that I was a personal assistant and a chief of staff for A-list celebrities and high net worth individuals. And when I was in that role, I learned something that I definitely didn't know prior to stepping into that world. Um, I had believed prior to that position that the assistant and principal role and relationship is monogamous. I thought that there is one assistant and one boss, and that's how you work together. But being in that role, I saw that I was often the second, third, sometimes fourth assistant on the team, and we were working together to complement each other's strengths, support each other in the weaknesses, to ensure that we get our principals to being those highest performers that they could possibly be inside of their industries and niches. So after that career, I had launched ChatterBoss. We are a fractional executive assistant company. So we work with entrepreneurs, business owners, service providers, and we pair them to an assistant team. So this is what makes our philosophy and approach unique. We work with a team of two at the minimum, and we guide our clients into getting their time back in this kind of a way. So really, we're focused on relationship. I'm focused on relationships, focused on figuring out like what works, what doesn't work. Many people have worked with assistants and VAs in the past and they've gotten burned, right? And then they have a hard time coming back and trusting. But we have to. If we're going to grow our businesses, we have to. So it's been a really, really fun journey, and it's our 8th-year anniversary next week. So really
Wow.
excited. Yeah.
Happy anniversary. I've had several
Thank
VAs
you.
myself, so I know exactly where you're coming from on that.
Hmm.
It's hit or miss, and I'll take some ownership and accountability of that as well. I looked at what I was assigning to them and maybe my lack of clarity of what I needed done. So I'm sure it's super important for you to look at this and say, okay, how clear are you on your vision and how do we align with that? So I'm sure you're going to go pretty much take a deep dive into it. So I'll let you keep going on and I'll be asking you some questions because this is being recorded so that we can get this out to all of our clients.
Absolutely. So the purpose of our conversation today is to talk about how do you make more money and save time by delegating. So um, like we just started to say, delegation is not an if, but it's a when and it's a how. And it is something that we are always approaching mastery, but we have to continue flexing that muscle. So that's why we're having this conversation. The answers that we will answer are what should you delegate? How can you find help? How much should you pay for your help? And we'll talk about some of those tactics. You just mentioned um, where is my accountability and where is the accountability of the person taking in and being delegated to? Well, they very much go hand in hand. And so we're going to lay the foundation of what it takes to set these relationships up right. Whether you are already working with an assistant and you want to improve, or you are or you know that you need the help, but you haven't taken the dive yet. It certainly leaves breadcrumbs in our businesses and in our lives when when we're under leveraged. So the idea is, how can you get the leverage you need?
Terrific.
So before we go into all of the details, I first want to illustrate for us the headspace that all business owners reside in. And what it looks like is lots of these pull activities, things that are taking up our time in an unintentional way. So our world looks like this when things are popping up. They're very urgent, they're very important, and we have to take care of them. And we have to take care of them on our own because we don't have anyone else to lean on for this support. The statistics show that anywhere from 30 to 60% of your workday is spent on administrative work. So that's wild, right? How many hours that is in a week, in a month, or in a year, and how much closer would you be to your goals if you could eliminate that and get that time back. So what does it start to look like? So let's illustrate it, right? What if somebody is taking away all of these things that are on your plate and that are specifically distracting? What will we be working towards? Well, we would be working towards white space. Before I give the definition, what is coming up for you when I say white space?
Oftentimes, what I see in our world as from a master advisory standpoint and reality is
Yeah.
they identify themselves with this busy work. So our
Mm,
business owners are looking at, wow, I have all these on my plate, so I'm busy. What are we busy doing? And are they money making activities? So white space for me is now I'm sitting overwhelmed. And what do I do? And really, that's kind of how I would look at it and say, that's where we come in as CEO warrior as well. So that's why, it's a
yeah.
great to have you as a partner in looking at how do we help them clarify what is the money make, what are the money making activities that are going to move the engine and what can we relieve from them? Oftentimes they don't delegate. Number one, it's their little baby and they don't want to give up control and they don't know what they should be taking off their plate. And the secondary comes from now I have all this empty time. I do nothing because I'm so used to this busyness.
Yeah. It's brilliant. I was smiling when you were talking because what's interesting about that, and I have to define white space in a moment, right? But I want to say something to that because research in organizational psychology will say that part of the satisfaction that we get from the work that we do is how quickly the work that we're doing gives us feedback. So some of this administrative stuff gives us feedback right away. I booked a flight, bam, serotonin, I feel good, right? But the work that you're actually doing that moves the needle forward in your business is long-term strategy, doesn't give you the quick win. So I love how you say that, like, it's addicting. We are totally addicted to doing the administrative work in our business, 100%. So white space, in design terms, white space is simply the space between graphics and text and no graphics and text. It just gives our eye a space to land so that we can absorb the information that is being shared with us. So, what does the world start to look like? What does our day and our life start to look like when we have white space? Well, we organize our life around the goals that we want to set for ourselves intentionally, and our time is spent uh, intentionally versus being pulled in all different directions. And so, what I know about all of you, everybody inside of CEO Warrior, is that you are high performers and you are inside of a program like this because there are big goals that you're looking to achieve, and you are goal setters. And so everybody has some version of their goals, whether you're checking them annually or monthly or weekly or daily, but they exist, right? And so if we have no direction, we're still going to get somewhere. It's just that if we're clear on the goals, it's not enough if we don't remove the distractions that we have. So that's our goal here. And I used to show it just like this. I used to say, well, here it is. We're going to eliminate the administrative burden because you're going to become a great delegator, and you're going to live inside of this perfect place where you're doing all of this. This is not a real illustration. A more real illustration is I start to do some of the things that I said I was going to do. And then some administrative thing pulls me back and I have to deal with it and I have to redelegate or I have to find a new partner, additional support, right? And then I delegate it back out and I get back here and then I'm sucked back in. So you are not alone. You are never really in this perfect 100% white space. Is that the goal? Yes, we're always going to work towards mastery. But that is just, that's not reality. The reality is we're always going to be distracted. It's just that I like to say, like, we have to claw back our time, claw back the time in order to even have a chance at any of this, whatever this is for you. So that's why we're having this conversation.
Absolutely, and this is so necessary, and, for us, we work really hard with the business owner and their teams, so we're creating
Yeah.
leaders out of the business owners where they may have come out of a truck, they may have been on the road, that's how they started their
Yeah.
business, and they're used to and it becomes a habit for them to handle everything, and they
Yeah.
don't really understand what their true target is, and they don't reverse engineer it, they don't have the
Yeah.
outcome, they don't think about it with the end in mind. So oftentimes when we do these delegation and decision making criterias of how to delegate, and we
Hmm.
go over this very, I mean, I think in every training, our master advisors, beat this into their heads, so if you
Hmm.
will, and that we're look at how do we get from point A to point B? What is the gap, and what tasks are we not completing? So a lot of what we do with ours as an advisory is we have to slow them down to put together accountability chart, so to speak. So it's not
Yeah.
just for the owner, for everyone. And who do they need on their teams from the organizational standpoint, organizational chart. So this would be so helpful for them because you're actually helping them to know what needs to get done on a daily basis. So it's
Yeah.
not only like, hey, listen, Valerie, I'm gonna pass this off to your team, but you're helping them to kind of take the path of what else are you missing? Right, is that something that you would say is rings true for you and your team?
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll dive into like a little bit of some of that methodology looks like, but essentially when you get started with us, it's you don't have to come with those SOPs. You don't have to come with that, perfect plan. Um, a lot of you are perfectionists, and so it doesn't have to start from that place. But where it does have to start from is a place of willingness and a desire to get the help. And also, we'll talk about, ROI in a moment, right? Like, how do we value ROI when we're working with assistance, and how do we measure that? But you need just like you're not going to go to the gym and you're not going to pick up, I don't know, like 100-pound weight. You're just not. But can you? Yes. And you're not going to go and you're not going to run a marathon tomorrow. But can you run a marathon? Yes. But um, if you want to do it in a short amount of time, you need a coach, right? If you have many, many, many years, you can try it on your own. And so that's part of our model as well. We are delegation coaches, and so we'll guide our clients into successfully delegating, right? To minimizing any of those issues.
Can you talk to me a little bit about that process? What does it look like for you to be able to go through and understand someone's business and really get inside their head of what needs to be extracted and taken off their plate? Is there a process behind that for you?
Yeah. So what we'll do is, so as I mentioned, we've been operating for 8 years. So what that starts to look like is that we have a questionnaire and you fill it in. And so that's what we like to say, like, that's your only homework. Come in, you complete a questionnaire. And that includes all of the possibilities of what there is in that administrative world. And so from there, you actually have an opportunity. You're paired with your own relationship manager, which is that delegation coach. And they're going to work with you to identify from the list of everything that you listed, what are the priorities, what's going to make the biggest impact. And like I said, we'll talk in a moment about ROI here. And we help to identify that, and then we make a plan. And so actually you get started with a roadmap, and that's your roadmap for success. So a lot of this feels, especially if you haven't delegated before, if you haven't used an assistant before, it can feel intimidating, and very often it's just kind of hard to know what's the right way to get started. But yeah, definitely, with our clients, the way that we work is really, we'll handhold, right? We can't do it without you. We will do it with you, but you will have all of the guidance and the support to ensure that it ends up a success.
Fabulous. And how
Yeah.
often are you meeting with your clients? So what does that look like from a perspective? It depends on the client.
Yeah, I mean, we are there for the success. So everybody is different. We definitely have, in your first month, you're meeting with them for your strategy session, and then you're meeting for a 2-week check-in, you're meeting for a 4-week check-in, you're meeting for a 1-month check-in. You can actually meet as often as you need, and then if you go even higher and you need those more high, like more complex delegation coaching, right? We do that as well. And so like so you're completely taken care of inside of our structure. And if we see that you're needing more help, that more help is available to you, right? But you're not doing it alone, and you cannot fail because you're not doing it alone, you know?
Fabulous. And do you work also with other team leaders? So our concept is to create leaders within the
Yeah.
organization and anyone who's in that critical mass.
Yeah.
So you're also meeting with anyone that they really would like for you to meet with and be able to help design more of a delegation tools, time management, putting together better processes for how to get the work done. And that's something that you guys are very well versed.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, like when you look at inside of organizations, right? We're skipping a little bit like towards like the end of the presentation here, but if you know what the experience looks like, so this is a team, right? So there's a world where you have one assistant. Well, you have a one assistant and a backup, but you have one dedicated assistant that's supporting like the founder. There's also a world where you have three key executives and they all need their own fractional support. And so, then that org chart grows bigger. So there's really a lot of opportunity to customize it in the way that's needed. But yes, 100%. The goal is to minimize the amount of like meetings that are taking place, the amount of interactions. And so the goal is really for your assistant to be that middleman inside of your organization, and very often between you and vendors, like maybe you and they can, we'll jump into in a moment, right? Like what you can delegate, but yeah, the world is your oyster.
That's fabulous. And the reality is many of our clients, when they come to us, they're unaware what they are worth an hour. So when
That's
we
right.
and I talk about delegation all the time from a standpoint, and this isn't, in a fractional executive assistant. I also speak about it very boldly. And if you're worth this an hour, what can we get off of our plate to produce more money, making activities? And it can be, simple things. And this is something that you can align yourself with doing laundry, getting laundry out, making sure, guys are outside cutting their grass, and how long does it take for them? If they're worth $500 an hour, is that helping them to reach their target? Also, hire somebody to clean your home. Like little things we don't always think about, but when they're taking so much time, the owners don't always respect their time. So that's a
Yeah.
great thing. I mean, I push for this all day long.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about what you said, right? So there is, and so you're talking about, monetary return on investment. So, and you said, well, actually, many people don't even know their time value. Like, in our experience, when people are considering delegating, you're starting from that place, right? Well, like, let me, I can kind of get a ballpark, right? Like, this is how much, if someone else is doing this and I am doing my key processes or key work, then this is how much I can make. And so you kind of do that calculation. Other ways that people calculate return on investment when working with an assistant from a monetary perspective is the amount of money they saved, the amount of money they earned, the number of new clients, business that they did not lose, increased productivity, right? Like any milestones that they met that then have big outcomes. Very often, though, they do not look at the psychological return on investment. So that is things like decreased stress, increased feelings of safety and security and partnership and shared decision burden, and just like, I don't know how to do this. Do it for me. And like how that having somebody like that at your fingertips, how much stress that removes from our plate, because we're not alone. A lot of business owners are alone, feel alone in their journey. They have others, but there's nobody there that is like specifically focused on all of the same things that the founder and the owner and the business owner is, except for whoever is in the office of the CEO and the business owner, and the assistant is there with you. So they're there in the trenches. They have the same KPIs as you. They have the same goals as you, versus you can have a sales team and they're focused on a bit of what you're focused on, right? But so it's huge. So the return on investment. So many people start on the monetary side, right? They do some calculations, and it's like it's October, so we're thinking about next year's budgets, right? We do a little bit of the calculation and we say, well, I'm going to spend this much. We cannot possibly calculate the psychological return on investment. And I find that very often we are under leveraged because we actually don't know what the psychological ROI can bring. Psychological ROI can bring that your company, if you want it to, 10x's. And that is like, that's way more than the time value, right? Like I earned 500 and I paid you 50, right? And so like, this is such a magical calculation here, right? And it's all possible, but it's certainly, you cannot grow to the extent that you want alone. So all of these psychological RIs, and I find that those business owners who are courageous and they start with delegating this first, the monetary follows. But it takes like a little bit of a leap, especially if you haven't delegated before, especially if you haven't paid for a generalist to support you in this kind of way. Sometimes it takes a leap, but that's what I've seen in the last 8 years, right? Is that like, this is a huge payoff, and it like it pays for itself in the white space, right? That you get back. So
Yeah, I mean, we always tell our clients, and that's why we have the community that we have here at CEO Warriors, that they're not alone. They're not doing this alone.
yeah,
But this is why
yeah,
they lean on the community, they lean on their advisors, they lean on their peers who are going through
yeah,
the same thing on the day to day. And they really don't realize how psychologically they're mentally burnt out trying to spin the wheel, because there's so many different, number one, distractions in a business. And number two, when we put together processes and strategies with them, we look at what can we remove off of you so we can replace it with something else as we grow. Where a company that is $1 million is going to have probably more distractions, but less on their plate as far as decisions that they have to make for the organization.
sure,
And then as they grow and they add more members of their team, they're going to have way more on their plate, but differently.
yeah,
So they get out of the physical burnout, but now it becomes more of a mental game, because
yeah,
they're looking at their targets and saying, well, how do I get there and increase
yeah,
my productivity and increase, becoming true leaders. And some of the
yeah,
people in our world have never, you don't go to school for the entrepreneurialism, right? You go to college to learn business, but being an entrepreneur is a whole new ballgame. Being a leader is a whole new
sure,
ballgame. That's our side of the business. So coupling
yeah.
with you is going to help them to raise their standard.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Mhm.
So let's look at a few things here. So what can an assistant support you with on the business side? The systems building, the email, the calendar. So many of you um, are just so inundated with that communication, and then a lot of the work that we do with CEO Warriors, like we know that you're on the go as well a lot of the time, and so that makes very little of an opportunity to just thoughtfully and intentionally build these systems, right? So there's a lot of opportunity for them to and like templates and guidelines and everything like that. But then how do you like actually find the time to execute an action? So that's where your assistant comes in. And how we've partnered here together is that if there is a if there's like a way, there are guidelines for social media, and there's guidelines for certain processes, and the CRM system, then having an assistant actually put that in place. We've had assistants set up, service tighten, and then be inside of it and do those communications in there, and do that outreach for clients, and do the project management. So that's a very, very big part in the way that we have partnered here together, and we know that the members that utilize it, they go so much further. And again, that's monetary ROI, right? Because you're able to get them invoices faster, you're able to get paid faster. I actually can't tell you how many times we've seen people do the work, like do the actual service, but then they take a very long time to invoice. And then it's like, that's the most direct, clear ROI that you can think of, right? Just get paid faster, and have your assistant be on top of that. So all of that is 100% something that you can get your assistants to support you, just that like scheduling those logistics, anything related to social media, the content creation. There's just so much. And I always also mention the personal support. It's not a small thing as business owners. I know that it's not the first thing that anyone probably thinks about when they're considering a fractional assistant. But it's, if you kind of think about like your levels of delegation and your mastery, very often it will start on the business side. And then there is this world of things, and what we just also know is that like if on the personal side things don't work, they also tend not to work on the business side, right? So they're just really, they're really interrelated. So, um,
I think you
so
hit
yeah,
the nail on the head with Service Titan, Valerie, because right there, we have so many members who want to utilize their CRM correctly because we teach you can't manage what you don't measure. And they don't have someone who's in-house who's able to help them. So as they're growing, but finding those people. So having you as a fractional VA
yeah,
would be incredible. Invoicing, and that was
yeah,
another really, I want to go back to that point where they're doing the work, they're going home late at night, they've already spent 10 hours
yeah.
in their business, and now they're trying to generate those invoices or follow up with clients that haven't paid yet. Of course, the residential sector, we train that they should be collecting on every job, but also there are so many other to understanding the dynamic marketing happens to be one of our largest deficits in these companies. They don't have time to market, they don't understand
Yeah.
marketing. And now you have come with us as we don't have to hire you as an employee, but we're able to delegate that responsibility to you. So I really wanted to just go back to that point because it's something that I hear on a daily basis. And again, helping with the cash flow, right? The AP, the AR, and understanding the numbers. And some of our clients, they're looking at it like, let me do my job because I'm strong in it. My weakness is this area. And that's where you're able to kind of slip right in. And maybe someone on your team, they don't work together well, but now you can fit them in with somebody else. It's a lot less expensive than going out to hire people that may or may not work out because we know the cost of an employee of how high it is, and the turnover and what that looks like for their company. It's a year salary. So this is a great way for them to plug you in.
Yeah, and it's a huge cognitive burden because there's so much that needs to be done, and the majority of what needs to be done very often is on that fractional side. But if we have to make that decision every single time we need to execute, right? Like, oh, I have to go. Like let's look at this. I think it's the next slide here, right? When you're making those decisions about do I go on Upwork or Fiverr, it's those are blockers. You're definitely acting much slower, and if you um it 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 takes a certain breakthrough, right? It takes like a certain breakthrough to understand if I'm inside of a program like CEO Warrior, but I am not um, able to execute everything, because everything that you offer is gold. It's gold, and it has to be done. Um, but if I can't execute on it, and I don't have the time, but I don't have the desire, and I don't have the competencies, right? Then I need a place where I can consistently send those needs to, that they end up being fulfilled. So let's talk about like what it looks like, right? So there is like everything in life is on a spectrum of how much you should spend for an assistant. So there's outsourced support out of the country. It can be as low as $5 an hour. It's what I'm still seeing, even though like I made this slide like many years ago and I thought that that was low, but I'm still seeing that in the marketplace now. So there are those options, right? I always caution, if it's your first time delegating, this is a hard place to be. Like, to set it up for success takes up a lot of patience, takes a lot of time, and I would say you have to be a master delegator. So lots of times, like we've had conversations with people that went out of the country, they got burned, but and then it took them a long time to kind of get ready to delegate again, and then they're back. So I urge, I put the hourly rates because it's important to kind of make decisions based on that. But I urge to think about value. We've also had, we have many customers that come to us and they say, I was spending, I was paying for a full-time assistant in the Philippines and I was paying, $7 an hour. But when you ask how many hours of that week were actually valuable and created some kind of return on investment, they'll say 2 or 3. Well, in that case, you're paying like $300 an hour. That's a very expensive hour, right? So just sometimes our mind plays so many tricks on us, and we have to, be so careful. So then, what happens on the other side of the spectrum here? It's a full-time chief of staff. So, like, how much should you spend on an integrator? You're looking for an integrator in your organization, and like an assistant is an integrator, is that generalist that's going to help the planes land and so on. Full-time of chief of staff, amazing, right? That's your full-time right hand. But in somewhere in the middle, you also have a US based assistance service. So this is where, this is where we are. We're right there in that sweet spot. It's a US based service. And you can get an assistant that can manage into a chief of staff or a director of operations if that's what you have on your team, but they can also manage your outsourced teams out of the country. So there's a world like that for you. So in fact, for us, the US based assistant is the dedicated assistant is US based and the backup assistant is based in South Africa. So actually with us, you get the best of both worlds, but you get it managed in a responsible way that leads you for success. Your US based assistant can also manage people on Upwork and on Fiverr for you. So when you say, okay, I need this person, actually we have a lot of in-house specialists, but something very specific can be found on Upwork, can be found on Fiverr. And that is, that's like the huge advantage. You don't have to go and like get stopped and like reconsider. You just you say I need a designer, and there's one on our team, and your assistant can manage them. So so that's pretty big when we're considering like budgets and how much we're spending and like all of that.
So let me ask you a question, Valerie, along those lines, because I know that when you're directing people that you have got to, I don't want to use the word babysit, but hold accountable and make sure that the work is done, it becomes much more expensive because then my time allowance grows. So you're hiring and putting people on your staff. And how are you more or less making sure that what does the hiring procedures look like on your end? So how do you know that, this is my vision for ChatterBoss, and then what kind of people are you looking to bring onto your team, and how do you vet them out?
Yeah. So that's the key, right? The hiring process is pivotal, and I believe that this role is it's very complex and often misunderstood, and so that's what makes it hard to hire for. But we have really found that kind of dream formula to make it work. And one of the key pieces of it is making sure that the person that we have, the assistants that we have on our team, they are committed, they're dedicated to the executive assistant function. So when we ask, like, what are the things that you don't like to do, and this like organizing, and invoices and all of that, that ends on your like don't like to do list. it's on the I love to do list for your assistants, right? For the right assistant. Today is actually like a hard time to hire as an individual business owner, because there are so many people who say, I want to work remotely, I want to maybe travel, and I'm not very organized, or I don't really like to do this work, but that's my pathway to, you know, just working remotely. Um, so there's many people out there like that. So you're vetting from thousands and thousands of assistants, and you don't know who's good. So that's one. Like there's a passion for this industry, and then number two, we look at skill set, we look at industries, we look at software. We do so many things in the hiring process, but one of the key things is that we also do a character and a personality assessment. So we get an opportunity to learn about, the nature of the assistant, and then is as the business owner, you get to take the assessment as well, and we pair you based on that. So aside from the skill set, the time zone, the availability, the budget, all of that, it's also an extra layer of how do you communicate, and how does that person communicate naturally, and how do we align you to a person with whom you're going to like working. Your right hand is somebody that you're communicating with all the time. So communication is not a small part of it. So the psycho graphics part of it comes up quite a bit.
Yeah, thank you for answering that. It's super important because for us, and I look at, people are looking at oftentimes they're investing into their company, investing into their people, investing into themselves, right? This is part of self-development as well. So when I think about the $5 VAs overseas, they're not going through these procedures to put together the proper team. And that can cause so many
Yeah.
errors and delays. So investing into a company like yours is really pushing them into something that they don't fully understand. And they may look at the right, we always talk about when we're walking through a sales process that it comes down to price, but having the value behind it, and I think that's a huge value system for you as a company, is that you're going through the extra miles to be able to pair people together that are gonna work well together. I was gonna ask you about the disc profiling, so I'm very happy that
Yeah.
it's part of your procedure, and I'm sure that our clients
Yeah.
will as well. So
Yeah,
that's
absolutely. So let's, we'll have this opportunity to connect in person in the event. There's, quite a bit of content, so I'll share that. I'll share that for that conversation, and anyone who's not joining the event that would like to set up a one-on-one conversation. When you share this around, if you'll put the link in there, we'll be very happy to schedule some time and have that conversation. And I'll also share a few, our delegation self-assessment. I'll share a few tools for this group as well, so they'll have an opportunity to kind of to interact, to do a deep dive, and to just if this is something that you're exploring on the delegation and the assistance side, right, to start to get an understanding of kind of where you are, and where you can start to do the support. So we'll be very, very happy to chat.
I definitely am looking forward to it. Now, how can people get in touch with you who are watching this?
So I'll put here in the chat, we have you can go to schedule our consultation. I'll put those few links in here. And so we can pass that along. You have an opportunity to complete the delegation self-assessment that I'm passing along, and then I'll also put in here a link to a copy of our book. And so that's like, if you are somebody that likes to kind of read and dive into some of the concepts, it's about how assistants and entrepreneurs and business owners can really thrive. So that's kind of years of observing which relationships work, and so you have that right there.
Fabulous. I appreciate that. Do you have any last minute shares of anything that you would like our audience to know, or maybe some good case studies of people who've really taken to the executive assistant, got things off their plate, and then where were they when they started with you, and then what was the result? What was some of the challenges that they were having? What are some of the results from that?
Yeah. I mean, especially when we're working inside of CEO Warrior, right? We've had clients that have come to us completely overwhelmed with just they know that they wanted to grow. They know that they wanted to see the business become more automated, more digitized, more efficient. They wanted more time with their family, and they wanted things to run. And so like we've gotten them from that place where the business is running on so many kind of old and antiquated systems, and we got them integrated into, we've set up CEO, set up Service Titan for them, and we've set up their social medias, and we've set up their calendar and their email. And so like in a wonderful like example of what that looks like, we've had clients that they're still doing a lot of the driving, and so like they're out, and so they have their assistant call them at a certain time. The assistant is able to run through all of the things, and they're not a bottleneck. They end their day without things in their inbox. They end their day knowing that their schedule is organized. They end their day knowing that that people who are expecting things from them are getting those things from them. And so definitely it is such a huge, like it's just so night and day what they're like, not just from like a tactical what they were able to accomplish, which is yes, right, like they would go from writing on a piece of paper what they were going to do and then getting the dates wrong and like not showing up where they were going, right, to like feeling completely like organized and in control of their business, right? So that's my dream for every business owner, is not to feel that their business is this like anxiety, this cause of stress, but rather is something that that they remember why they got into the business, and they get to do the parts that they really love and enjoy. So that's
Love that. So it's
yeah,
like keeping them into their passion project, keeping them
yes,
stabilized, and that is an
yeah,
invaluable resource to have. So I thank you so much for attending the webinar today and being able to bring your company to light. And I know that there are so many of us out there that, in our CEO world and the service-based world that are going to be thinking, okay, their heads are spinning and they're going to want to get in touch with you. So again, we'll put those links when we do post this replay. We'll also can find Valerie at chatterboss.com. And we're going to see you next week at our war planning event, an all warrior event next week, which is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And we are really excited about that. And lastly, for us, speaking of events, we are going to be in Houston, Texas, live November 14th and 15th with a workshop that is going to help you to pull apart your business so that you actually know what you need help with. So for us, we're going to look at a roadmap as well, and we're helping you create that. And hopefully Chatterboss will be on that roadmap and something that you'll be implementing. And implementation is designed by death. And those are the things that hold people back. We have these grand ideas, and many of our entrepreneurs are about vision, and they're true visionaries, and they have a hard time implementing. So
yeah,
I think this is such a great pairing. And again, I thank you
yeah.
and for coming on today and sharing your business with us and your thoughts. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.